Welcome to Off the Cuff. My name is Lane. I'm your host for today, and I'm driving my 1985 Porsche 944. It's a bright sunny day here in Santa Cruz, California, and I haven't driven this car in, I'd say, a little over a week or so. So I wanted to take it out, just kind of get it up to temp and drive it around a little bit. So I'm gonna go drive it by the ocean, a couple blocks from my house, and then maybe up the coast a little bit. But I wanted to do a little video for everyone. We're still plugging away on Radwood, and I had a little Stuart Smiley moment. So deep thoughts, basically. If you don't know old Saturday Night Live stuff, deep thoughts with Lane Skelton. Welcome. So I was just thinking about it because Art posted yesterday on Instagram that he drove. A friend of ours, Gen, has a bunch of cars, but he has a Lancia Delta Integrale. And everyone, a lot of people are fascinated by those cars. Facebook and Instagram have been throttling all of our posts lately because they want us to spend money. But that post got like over 1,000 likes on Instagram, which is like big for us these days because they're doing some weird, they're trying to monetize it as much as they can, and they want money for companies posting stuff. But yeah, people seem to love the Delta Integrale. I guess I never grew up really, I don't know, I guess I grew up not really knowing much about it. I was just never really into it, didn't know much about it. Maybe it's a Gran Turismo thing or a video gamer thing, like people that were really into video games were really into it, but I don't know much about it. It seems like a really cool car. It's like 200-ish horsepower, right under 3,000 pounds, all-wheel drive, so kind of like a, dare I say, first-gen WRX? I don't know. I imagine it's one of those cars where the steering feel is way better than a Subaru WRX and has a lot more sense of occasion, and the engine's more special, stuff like that. But from the out, just looking at it as a numbers thing, it kind of seems like an E30 M3 with all-wheel drive. And I think most people that have driven E30 M3s would agree that they're a little underwhelming. They're really fun cars, don't get me wrong, but they're underwhelming for how much praise they get, I guess, or how much money they are now. I think it's more of a money thing because they deserve the praise. They're a good car, they're a great race car, and I think it's more like the E30 M3 has a similar driving experience to a 944, except you're not low. It's less of a sports car, more of a sports sedan. But I think it's like paying, imagine paying 30 to 100 grand for an NA 944, so non-turbo, and not even an S2, like an earlier one, like this one, basically. That's what the E30 is more comparable to, I would say. And I did drag race my friend's E30 M3 in high school in my 84 944, which had a limited slip differential. It was like a sport package car, and I beat him 3 out of 5 times. So yeah, they're not E30 M3s aren't that fast. But back to my point, Art said the car lived up to the hype. I haven't really talked to him about it in depth. I'm interested to hear his whole long tale about it on the next podcast. But he was super, he seemed super amped about the car, and it lived up to all the hype, is what he said in his post on Instagram. And that just got me thinking, of any car. I can't think of a single car I've ever driven that really blew me away. Where I was just like, holy, like, you know, I need that car. And I got to thinking about it, because a lot of times you drive cars, you're like I drove Art's Clown Shoe the other week, and it was just exactly what I thought it would be. You know, it was an E36 M3, scaled down a little bit with a really cramped interior, and you kind of sat further back, and, you know, a little bit difference, but essentially it was a BMW, a smaller E36 M3, and not much lighter, actually. But yeah, it's one of those weird things. I can't think of a single car. Actually, so I got thinking about it. You know, I've driven a bunch of stuff. Even, like I always say, my holy grail, like, modern-ish sports car is a 996 GT3, just because I think that's a great, it's pre all the nannies, and it kind of does everything really well, but it still has a little bit of a rawness to it. But I remember driving the first time I drove a 996 GT3, and kind of just thinking, oh yeah, so it's like my 996 that I had at the time, just with like better suspension and a little more power. I mean, it did, you know, it has 80 more horsepower, but it's not like, it's kind of exactly what you expect, right? It's not like, it wasn't like mind altering or anything. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, this is the holy grail. It's kind of like, maybe it's not worth, you know, at the time, like 3 times the price of my 996, which I think I paid like, I paid $33,000 for my 996 back in 06 or whenever I had it. So I was trying to think of any car I've driven that was like, just totally blew me away or lived up to expectations. I think more cars have kind of not lived up to expectations, or just kind of like, you know, I left them saying, oh yeah, that's really cool, but that's a lot of money, right? Like driving Ferrari, I don't know, 430s or 360s or 575s, or I don't know, any of those cars, Audi R8s and Lamborghini Aventador is definitely a disappointing driving experience, although I haven't driven the newer ones. So I don't know, they all just kind of leave me saying, oh, so these are cool and all, but I kind of have just as much fun in my, you know, whatever I have at the time. And I'm going through like the Rolodex of cars I've driven to anything that's like really blown me away. And I actually came up with one car that I remember having that kind of like, where's my, I need to like buy, I need to sell whatever I'm driving right now and buy this car. And that could have been circumstantial, because at the time I didn't have a sports car. I was driving my Volkswagen Jetta TDI to work, and I think that's all I had, actually. So, and then my wife had whatever she had. I don't remember what she had at the time. Volvo S40 or something like that. But that car that kind of like blew me away was, believe it or not, a Subaru. No, it was a Scion FRS. So the one car I've driven that's like blown me away was a 200 horsepower Scion with a Subaru motor and notorious flat spots and the power curve and all this stuff. But I remember driving that car and it was like, holy crap, this is like what I've been missing. It's just that, like, a light, nimble, and it was reminiscent of driving this car, the 944. And it got me wanting to sell my my TDI and buy one of those, or a Subaru BRZ. And rather than do that, because I was commuting and stuff, and I have to carry my kids and all that. Although I could do that in Subaru now, probably, but they were younger at the time. Instead of that, I went out and bought this Porsche 944, and I think I bought it, I don't know, a month or two after I drove that car, and that got me, that's like one of those things where, and then a friend of ours, Matt, at Hushy Pushy on Instagram, just bought a new BRZ, and he had an FRS before, and it gets me thinking. I mean, those cars are, I think I really like those cars. It's kind of weird, but there's all these kids here. I guess there's a high school. So yeah, that's the one car that's blown me away. I'm blown away by this answer to this kind of question I made up, and I'm having I guess I kind of understand it though, because it's like I'm not power hungry. I don't know. I think I just like the form factor and the predictability of a rear-wheel drive, like low-slung sports coupe with, close to 50-50 weight distribution. So I guess that's just my style of car. Like, everyone has their own style of everything. I recently started a movie podcast with Bradley Brownell, and he's all into all these superhero movies, and I could give I care less for the superhero movies. And to me, superhero movies are kind of like the Lamborghini Aventador of, they're the Lamborghini Aventador. It's kind of like they have all this power and all this grip and stuff, but are they really fun? It gets kind of boring, right? And that's superhero movies, just a bunch of fight scenes, and it turns into a bunch of blah because there's so many fight scenes and so much just kind of pointless stuff. So yeah, that's my question to the car that's blown me away. Scion FRS. And believe me, I've driven some pretty awesome cars and some really cool stuff, but I'm just going through everything. 997 GT2, it's kind of laggy and it's weird. So anyways, that's the end of my rant. I will talk to you guys later. Bye.